You're listening to KFWB News Talk 980. My name is Les Brown. I'm Mrs. Mamie Brown's baby boy, and we want to thank you so much for joining us today. Years ago, I was in the airport, and I picked up a friend and had to transport this friend from the airport to a Greyhound bus station to go to a short ride to another city, and met a person who was a runaway. And while engaged in conversations with this person, I thought about how many kids like this? Over 1 million kids that are walking the streets and ran away from home. And my guest today deals with this area. Allen Cardoza is a licensed private investigator and the founder and president of the Westshield Adolescent Services and Westshield Investigations. Between these two companies, he has successfully located, returned, and or transported thousands of runaways or at-risk youth to homes, hospitals, and schools for over 25 years. I've learned that Allen is the past president of the World Association of Detectives and has traveled the world returning abducted children to their custodial parents or guardians and broken up human trafficking rings. Through his speeches, his articles, and forthcoming book, Running Away in America, Allen offers solutions for parents and teens and sheds light on the connection between runaway teens and human trafficking. I encourage you to listen as well as have someone that you know that's perhaps a parent to listen as well. Some key things, some key thoughts, and some ideas, concepts, and approaches that will be helpful. Allen, first of all, I want to ask you, coming up in your childhood, tell me, what was your childhood like?
Well, first, Les, thanks for having me. And as far as my childhood, I think I had your typical middle-class childhood. I had mom and dad, and unfortunately, like many, got divorced, while I was young. And I was put in a position to where I really had to start taking control for myself. I realized that as the oldest male in the house, I think that I had to grow up a little faster than most.
And you worked in the home business, and what did you do?
And I started working, in the home business, and I was doing roofing. That's what the family business was. That's what we did, and that's what the boys started to do probably as early as 13 years old.
How did you segue into doing the work that you're doing now as an investigator?
Well, as doing the roofing, and we would do it like all summer. I would do it after school. Well, on one weekend, I fell off the roof. I fell off a 2-story roof and landed on my back. I herniated my back in 2 places. So with 2 discs out, I was laid up for about 6 weeks. And while I was laid up, I really started looking inward to see what is it that I really capable of doing, that I think there's more to me than just putting on people's roof.
And so you decided to do something else. And so how did you come to the conclusion to do what it is that you're doing now?
Well, I always had liked investigation shows. I'd watched them on TV, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to pick up the Yellow Pages. I'm going to start calling investigators, and I'm going to be persistent. I'm going to call them till I get somebody that gives me an appointment. And I'll tell you, if I'm going through the Yellow Pages or going through actually the White Pages, the person that gave me an appointment, his last name is Zwanitzer with a Z. So you can tell I made a lot of calls.
Okay. Now, what got you into the business of locating and helping runaway teens?
Well, Walt Zwanitzer, the owner of the company at the time, said, I'm going to put you in charge of locating runaways because you look like those kids that are out there running away. I think you're going to fit in with them.
Was that a compliment?
At the time, I didn't think so, but I think in the long run it was.
And so that's when you really began to look at this area. Now, you mentioned that some of these teens end up in human trafficking, and you talk about it in the book about going on right here in America, that many of these teens end up in human trafficking. In America?
Well, Les, yes, in America, and I know that to some people is shocking, and I used to bring that information up to people, and I would explain it to them, and they would look at me and go, no, that's what goes on in third world countries. That doesn't really go on here.
In the Sudan and those kind of countries.
Exactly. And
that's happening in America.
That's happening in America. It's happening right now. In fact, there are estimates that there's somewhere around 1.25 million people enslaved in the United States today.
And so what are the authorities doing about that?
Well, in the past, not a whole lot. But today, they really are starting to do a lot. There are task forces now. Almost every major city has a task force. Government has put together new laws, and they've given the laws some teeth. that allow them to go after these people, to go after these traffickers, and to be able to shut them down and be able to stop not only that part of their criminal empire, but whatever else they're doing.
Who are the people committing these crimes?
Well, it's all walks of life. I mean, you have everything from people who are just very, very rich, and they have servants, and they've brought them over from another country, and in doing so, they've told them that they don't have choices here. They have led them to believe that America may be just like it was in the country they came from. So that's one kind. But I think the worst kind right now are the people that have made it part of their criminal empire. And that would be drug traffickers. And I have a quote from one of our undercover people, one of my partners. He was undercover, and one of the drug traffickers said, the reason that we've shifted much of our business from drugs to humans is because you can sell a gram of cocaine once, but I can sell a woman over and over and over again.
Oh, my God. We're talking with Allen Cardoza. He's the president of Westshield Adolescent Services. And he has dedicated how many years of your life to doing this?
30 years.
30 years of your life locating runaway teens. We're going to open our lines up for questions from you. The number to call is 888-539-2980. 888-539-2980. That's 888-539-2980. We'll be back with more. My name is Les Brown. You have something special. You have greatness within you. You're listening to KFWB News Talk 980. You're listening to KFWB News Talk 980. My name is Les Brown. Today, my guest is a gentleman that has for 30 years, Allen Cardoza, has dedicated his life to returning home teenagers who run away. Allen, what are some of the signs? We have a lot of parents listening to this program. There are over 1 million kids walking the streets of America. What are some of the signs that parents can look for that will indicate that their child might decide to run away?
Well, Les, and I think that's a great question, because for the parents to be able to see these things and catch it ahead of time is going to be huge for them. For them to be able to look for the child that now is stopping communicating with them because they're only communicating with their friends. The child that is so wrapped up in their video games or anything that takes them outside of the home. They're no longer willing to be there for dinner. That's now no longer as important as it used to be. And where they really feel like they're starting to lose control. And at that point, the biggest thing the parents can do is to communicate. Sit down with that child, talk to them, and find out what is really going on in their life. Because the child, in most cases, is really screaming for some form of structure, but parents sometimes are too focused on wanting to be their best friend and not understanding that their job as a parent is really to set the structure that they need.
When you say communicate with them, what do you mean by that?
Well, find out what it is that is their love. Find out what it is that your child's passion. Find out what it is that your child's fears are. If your child, all of a sudden is staying out all night, and it's more important to them to be with their friends or to start adopting a completely different lifestyle, find out what's going on with that. Either do it by talking to them, talk to their siblings, talk to the parents of the friends that they're hanging out with who also are not coming home at night.
Okay. The number to call is 888-539-2980, 888-539-2980. We're talking about runaway teens and what are some of the symptoms that parents can look for. When you begin to look at kids who are doing that, are some of the things they do might give you an indication in terms of, I went to the store this morning and before coming into station, and the young person there, she had hair all purple and all type of piercings and tattoos. Is that an indication that this is a different kind of person that's succumbing to peer pressure, or this is a person that's marching to a different beat and just being very creative in how they present themselves?
Generally, it's going to be the second. This is a person that may just be so into their own individualism that's what makes them feel good. And I warn parents, don't start making your decisions based on what your child is looking like, by the way that they're cutting their hair or by the color of their hair. Judge it more on what's important. What are the core issues? Are they being honest with you? Okay, when you're asking them questions, are they giving you an honest answer, even if it isn't the one that you want to hear? So not so much the physical thing, but you can also go towards the friends. What's going on with the friends that they're hanging out with? If these kids are not going to school, then there's a good chance that your child may end up cutting school as well.
So that peer pressure is real, that if they run around with losers, they'll pick up the habits and the behaviors of the losers.
Absolutely.
If their friends are doing pot, they're going to do pot.
Yep.
If their friends are drinking and engaging in negative activity, they're going to play that as well.
Absolutely. And I can't tell you how many parents that we've worked with that have said, well, I found these drugs in my son's room, but he said that they were his friends, so we believed him. You know what? If his friend's leaving drugs in your son's room, your son's involved in it at some level.
Let's talk about the abducted children you return from all over the world. Explain some of the risks going into foreign countries to try and get children out.
Well, Les, one of the things that has happened, as the world has gotten smaller, we as humans are meeting people from other countries, from other cultures. We're marrying them, we're falling in love with them, which is a beautiful thing. But unfortunately, some of the downsides to that is that there are people in other countries that have a different view of what happens when that marriage breaks up. And when that marriage breaks up, there are people who believe that the man automatically gets the child, or the woman automatically gets the child, and they have the belief that that's the way they were raised, that's what should happen, and they don't want to honor our laws. So they, whatever it is that our courts may say, they take the child, they run to that country, and if that country has not signed the Hague Treaty, which is an international law, it makes it very, very difficult for our government or anyone to go into that country and get that child out.
If you're just tuning in, we talked to Allen Cardoza. He's the president of Westshield Adolescent Services. He's dedicated 30 years of his life returning runaway teens. Why do you risk going into foreign countries to bring kids back, and it's so dangerous to do that kind of work?
I think I take the risk because of the children. The children didn't put themselves in this position. One of their parents did.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the child is growing up with two parents, hopefully in a loving environment, and all of a sudden they're ripped away from one of those parents. At that point in time, you are taking, probably one of the major people in that child's life.
Oh, you're talking about taken by one of the parents?
Yes.
Okay, to a foreign country.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so now that parent has taken the child from the other. They are oftentimes telling the child lies, we've worked cases to where when we found the child, we had a child that was afraid because I had the father in the vehicle with me. When I put the child in the car, the child started to freak out because they said, "You must be a ghost because Mommy said you were dead."
Whoa. You were telling me about a young man that ran away because of something his parents said to him in terms of punishing him and the threatening statements the parent made, and the child took it literally.
Absolutely, and that falls into the area of communication. When you're communicating with your child, when you make a flippant statement, such as in this situation, the young man had gotten in trouble with being with other kids that had marijuana at school. So the boy got grounded, but the parents made a flippant comment that said, if you are ever caught doing something like this, you're going to be grounded for the rest of your life, and we're going to send you off to a treatment program. Well, that boy about 3 weeks later got busted at school for having cigarettes. All he remembered that his parents said was, grounded for the rest of your life and sent away to treatment. Because of that thought, he stole the family car. He was gone about 5 days. During that time, he was mugged. He tried much stronger drugs for the first time. He ended up wrecking the car, breaking 3 ribs and breaking an arm in 2 places before we found him, all because he believed that his parents were going to send him away forever.
We're talking with Allen Cardoza, and his passion is returning kids back to their families who have been involved in running away and helping to restore those families. The number to call if you have any questions from a preventative perspective, the number is 888-539-2980, or whatever question that you might have. 888-539-2980. That's 888-539-2980. He's a resource in this area. My name is Les Brown. You have something special. You have greatness within you. You're listening to KFWV News Talk 980. I want to talk to you about my special guest, Allen Cardoza, who's dedicated 30 years of his life of returning kids to their families. And Allen, he's one of the co-authors in my book, Fight for Your Dreams. You can get this on Amazon, The Power of Never Giving Up, featuring new leading voices of hope. And the title of his chapter is called, and it's really powerful, called The Magic Wand. When I read that grabbed me. That I really want you to get this. It's a powerful book, a lot of great stories, but this is one that touched my heart. Tell them about if you had a magic wand.
Yeah, the concept of a magic wand is working with these kids and talking with these kids, and it doesn't matter if we are getting them as a runaway, if we are transporting them to a specialized program. Anytime we're working with these kids is to show them that we're going to listen to them. And I would start many of my conversations with them that would say, if I had a magic wand, what would you want me to do? What can I do to serve you with my wand? And it's amazing how many of these kids will all of a sudden blossom. They will start talking about the things that they want. They'll talk about the passions that they really have. And in many cases, nobody's ever asked them that. They've gotten into some trouble, and they feel they've sort of been painted with this broad brush of you're a bad kid, and so somebody has to deal with you. And for us to approach them differently and really talk to them about how great they can be, we'll help them. Let me use my magic wand to help you. What would you want me to do?
There are some kids that are abducted by their parents for whatever reasons, for spite, or they think they're the better parent, and so therefore the courts didn't respond to them, didn't listen to them, and they decide to take off with the kid. Do you ever handle cases of that nature?
Well, yes, we do, and unless we specialize in it in the sense that we've gone to many other countries. And in fact, I have a team right now that's in the country of Dubai. I'm pretty sure they're not listening right now in Dubai, so I think I can talk a little bit about it.
Yes.
But, you know, it's the type of thing in that situation where in that country, they're of the belief that the man pretty much gets whatever he wants. And in dealing with a situation like that where we have a westernized mom, the westernized mom that's raised a child over here or in a Western country is not going to allow this child to just be taken from them and then raised in that country under a completely different culture and a completely different set of rules.
Now, there are people who abduct kids right here in the United States, don't even take them across the border, take them to another state, and just get lost, you know, that they disappear, they vanish, change their identity with the kid, and many times it's fathers and sometimes it's mothers who do that because they're in an abusive situation and they want to get away with the kid so they can keep the kid away from harm as well as themselves.
Well, yes, and that certainly does happen, and you mentioned when you said by men and in some cases by women, 30 years ago when I started working these cases, it was about 80-20. You know, 80% of the time it was the male that was taking the child. In the interest of equality, it's now about 60-40.
60-40?
Yeah, as far as
60% men.
Right.
And 40% women. And what are the primary reasons that women will take the children and vanish?
Well, I think when the women do, it is when the father, at least in reality, has been abusing the child, or possibly just in that woman's perception. She believes that the children are being abused, and even if it's a joint custody situation.
And what if she's a victim of domestic abuse?
Exactly. And in many cases, they themselves have been a victim, but it wasn't something that was able to be proven in court. So in that case, the parent gets, 50-50 custody, but yet that mother is fearful for those children, feeling that they may get abused while they're with the father, and they are so dedicated to this that they take the child, as you said, they change their name, they go to another state, they go, in some cases, live off the grid.
What do you mean by that?
Off the grid, to where they don't put electricity in their name, they don't put a home in their name, they pay cash, they don't get credit cards. They're literally off the grid as far as the ways in which people can be found.
What's the most heartbreaking thing that you've ever witnessed since you've been doing this in your 30 years?
I mean, there's so many. I'll try to throw out a couple. I know one that came to mind to me recently was a woman who had stolen the child. The father was a wonderful man. He had been going blind, and she stole the child because she believed that he couldn't take care of the child in the way in which she thought that he should. Well, she also had a drug issue, and she was able to sort of make up whatever seemed to work in her own mind. When we found the child and we picked up the child, law enforcement took possession of the woman. I took possession of the child, and when I brought the child and put the child in the car, the child started to freak out and started screaming because he said, "Oh my God, you must be a ghost because Mom has been telling me that you're dead," in referring to his own father. Now, the positiveness of this story was that within about 5 minutes, we were able to convince the child that the father was absolutely alive, and that the last 6 months that he hadn't seen his father was because he had been diligently looking for him every single day.
Whoa. When you look at how long you've been doing this, how much longer are you burned out, or are you still driven by this? Is this still your passion?
It is still my passion, and I could not see myself being burned out. I really think that the best thing that I can do now not only is to keep working the cases, but to get the information out, like this, on your radio show, being able to get this out over the air for more people to realize that they're not alone. If there's a child that's hearing this and they think, I thought I was alone in the way in which I feel, or a parent, or anyone out there who is being exploited, I want them to know that they're not alone, and this is the best way to do it. And be it in television, be it in radio, speaking engagements, getting the word out. I may get to a point to where I can't be the one that physically goes in there and takes the child, but I will always be able to make sure that people know that there is something you can do to help.
How do they get in touch with you?
They can go to our website. You have www.transportingteens, that's teens as in teenagers.com. There is Westshield.com to get to the investigation company, or you can call me at 800-899-8585.
Repeat the number again, please.
That is 800-899-8585.
Allen Cardoza. I'm so proud to have him as a co-author in our book, Fight for Your Dreams, The Power of Never Giving Up, featuring the new leading voices of hope, and he's one of those voices of hope, and quite a voice he has. We encourage you to go online, Amazon.com, and get the book, and most certainly read his chapters. Riveting, it's captivating, it touches your heart. It's also very inspiring as well. You're a wonderful blessing to the planet. Thank you for who you are, for your passion, and the love that you have for children. It comes through in the sound of your voice. I appreciate you. You have greatness within you. Love you and value the contribution that you're making with our kids.
Thank you, Les. And again, I thank you because you are getting the word out, and you have been doing it for a very long time. Thank you.
Thank you. You're listening to KFWB News Talk 980. I was just talking to Allen Cardoza, and if you listen to him, he's so articulate, so fluent in his conversational style, the richness of his voice and how he spoke. And off mic, he said, I used to stutter. And he said, and after listening to some of your motivational cassettes back in the day and taking landmark training, he said, I discovered that I had the power within me to overcome anything, including stuttering. And as I was figuring out what I was going to do with my life, as I was seeking to find my way as a young man, I conquered that. And what I thought about as he was leaving the studio is that there are places in our lives where we've stopped. I think it was Maya Angelou who said that most of us go so far in life and then we park. He could have parked at stuttering. He could have parked right there and decided that he was powerless in the face of that. But because he was seeking to transform his life, he was looking for a way in which he could express more of himself. He found the power within himself to conquer that. And when I think about what he said, and I thought about a friend of mine who She does a seminar and a speech called Take Your Power Back, named Trish. She was a victim of sexual molestation, and she decided to take her power back, that she had allowed that to govern how she saw herself. She blamed herself from being a victim of incest at a very young age, and she decided to take her power back, and as Allen Cardoza decided to take his power back. And you have the power to do that. As you look at yourself, as you look at your life, rewarding experiences of working in this area that he has experienced and witnessed, and returning teens back to their families, he would ask them, if I had a magic wand and could give you your wish, what would you wish for? And he said they would light up, and they would start talking about the things that they wanted in their lives, the things that they saw for themselves in their future. They would light up and talk about their passions and their dreams and the kind of life that they wanted. They would give this response out of their imagination as opposed to their past that might have been very painful and dysfunctional. If you had a magic wand and could just wave it and create anything in your life, what would that be? And those young kids, those teenagers, would really become teenagers in every sense of the word, because many of them become old people way before their time because of abusive, dysfunctional situations in which they find themselves in. Many have been abused and experience a great deal of pain. And in that moment of safety that he has created for them, he gives them an opportunity to really begin to see that and to experience what that would be like, and work to get them back into a life of normalcy and get them transition into an environment of safety so that they can be protected, so that they can grow up and be assets to our society rather than a liability, and give them the power to choose ye this day whom ye shall serve, the highest that is within you or the lowest that is within you. Our young people are 40% of our population, but they're 100% of our future. And he decided 20 years ago, after falling off a roof in a family business and suffering an injury to his back, he wanted to do something different, and started going through the white pages and called a detective agency after watching detective movies on television, and decided, I want to do that. And he was given an opportunity to do that and been doing it for 30 years. Isn't life interesting? Is that something? Found his passion and found his destiny in a telephone book. You know, God's got jokes. He's got jokes. What are you doing? Is it you? I said, you've been doing this for 30 years. Are you burned out? He said, no. Are you tired? No. Is it still your passion? He said, yes. And I knew the answer before he gave me the response. I could hear it in his voice, that even though he's been doing it since he was 20, he's nowhere tired. Even though his head is full of white, gray hair, he's nowhere tired. He is still vibrant and energetic and fired up and driven and determined to continue to do this until he leaves here, because it is his work. It is his assignment. It is the calling on his life. You have something special. You've got greatness within you. My name is Les Brown. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. You're listening to KFWB News Talk 980.